Okay. So we are going to learn some Pirkei Avot, some Jewish ethics, as we do this time of the day, or this time of the week, rather. All right. And let me get this all set over here. We could share the screen. Oops. 2. Let's get right into it. Everybody see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Beautiful. You can make it larger if you'd like. Because for some reason I can't.
We don't have control over that.
On your screen, you could either with your fingers, you could do that, or you could do it.
Rabbi, if you hit Control and the plus sign,
Control
and the plus sign,
Where's
it
the
should.
plus? Where's the okay there? Oh, whoa! Who was that? Reggie?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have been hired as our technical advisor.
Thank
Oh
you.
no.
Listen, that's what happens when you wear a watch. You know what's going on.
I wear a watch, but I never know what time it is.
But you know how to control things here well. Good. Thank you. All right, beautiful. Okay. So we are on the 4th Mishnah in the first chapter. And we're going to read it. And I'd like you all to please make note of things that you see that are different. Things that you see that are a question. Either the meaning, the phrase, questions. That's what I want to have. Okay, so Yossei, the son of Yoezer of Tzreidah. Yossei ish ben Yoezer ish Tzreidah. Yossei ben Yochanan. And there's another Yossei, the son of Yochanan of Ish Yerushalayim of Jerusalem. Kiblu mehem, received the tradition from them. Who's them? The ones who were previous. Who was previous? Antigonus Ish Suko, and before that was Shimon HaTzadik, Shimon the righteous. So remember tradition? We spoke about it in the first Mishnah. Right, that I suggested one word, to define all of Judaism. The word Mesorah, which means a tradition. Kibul means the receiving of the tradition. Right, so they are a recipient of the tradition. Yossei ben Yoezer of Tzreidah would say, "Let your home be a meeting place for the wise. Beischa, beis vad lechachamim." That's the Hebrew. Where chachamim means wise for the wise. Beischa, your home. Further, dust yourself in the soil of their feet. Have a misabig ba'afar ragleihem, and drink thirstily of their words. And have a sheiseh b'tzama es divreihem. So, anything that you see different about this Mishnah, I mean, obviously it's a different teachings, but aside from being a different teachings, what else do you see about this Mishnah that makes it stand out? So there's the content, but beyond the content, is there something that stands out in this Mishnah? Anybody?
Rabbi?
Yes.
Hello?
Saul?
For
Go ahead.
2 people.
Oh, very good. Excellent. 2 people. Look at the previous Mishnah. Thank you, Saul. As Antigonus, the man of Sukkot, he received the tradition for Shimon the righteous. Now, all of a sudden, there's 2 people involved over here that receiving the tradition. What's going on over here? We need to understand that. Excellent. Thank you, Saul. Anything else that stands out? So just going further on the idea of two people, obviously means each one of them has some kind of role in making sure that the tradition, that the Masorah is being carried out. So what is that? Obviously it's not a duplicate role. We need to understand what is the role over here. Very good. Anything else that anything else that it becomes either a question or something that is unique, something that stands out?
Is this all in the Siddur, or is there a separate book for Pirkei Avot?
It's in the Siddur. Do you have the blue Chabad Siddur?
Not at home.
Okay.
I have an art scroll Siddur, art scroll.
Okay, so then you probably it's probably after the Mincha Shabbos prayer. That's what I'm assuming. It would be after the Shabbos Mincha prayer. Okay.
Thank you.
You would probably find it there if you want to look it up, which is great, by the way, if you want to look in advance and to appreciate and to understand. Okay, so just some other interesting things over here. Who's this speaking to? Let your home be a meeting place for the wise. Is it speaking to everybody? Is it speaking to wise people, learned people? What does it mean, the metaphor of the dust yourself with the soil of the feet? Very interesting, metaphor over here. What's the difference between dust and soil in the metaphor, right? I mean, we understand the difference, but there's obviously, this is all metaphoric language that we need to understand the difference in those words, right? In Hebrew, avak and afar, dust and soil. Dust relating to ourselves, soil relating to the feet of the wise. And I guess drink thirstily of their words. That's pretty, prevalent euphemism that we use in, modern day language about drinking the, thirstily wise words from the wise. Okay, that's pretty simple. Okay, so let us share some thoughts together. First of all, this is the beginning, and there are chapter of 5 different pairs of individuals that are going to be speaking and sharing their wisdom with us, their teachings with us. What is the two? One is called the Nasi, and the other one is called the Av Beit Din. Nasi translates as prince, leader. Av Beit Din means like father of the house, what's the word? The head of the court, right? Av meaning head, referring to the father. The father figure of the home is like the head of the home. It means the head of the court of law. So the Nasi is sort of like the people's leader, providing the inspiration in the positive path and the positive things people to do in their lives. And the Av Beit Din, who is the head of the court, would be more emphasizing, the fence around the law, the don'ts, the things that we need to refrain from, keep away from. So that, that's what the Maharal writes, and to explain the distinction between these two leaders. Okay. Now, from a historic perspective, why is this all of a sudden happening? So does anybody remember, funny, does anybody remember Antiochus Epiphanes?
Yep. Of course. Hanukkah.
Right. Who made the comment just recently that, Happy Hanukkah? Who said that?
It was Herschel.
Herschel, right. You didn't even know what you were saying. You said it with prophetic vision. Antiochus Epiphanes is a story of Hanukkah. that happened in the 2nd century before the Common Era, during the Second Holy Temple, right? Till that time, what was happening? There was a leader of the Jewish people, and therefore there was a continuity amongst the Jewish people. Because of the influence of the Hellenists, they weren't just interested, they were interested actually to assimilate, that the Jews should become assimilated. As a result, they had, devastating influence upon the Jewish people. That began a what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of like a break in the continuity, in the fact that there was, till then things were not really fractured. Yes, there were always Jews who, went off the path. Yes, there were always difficulties, but not as they were at that time, because of the story of Hanukkah, Antiochus Epiphanes, who was a cruel leader. That created a greater fracturing of the Jewish people. And that reflected itself very simply in the fact that now there wasn't just that continuity of one leader. You needed 2 leaders. One that was the Nasi, so the people's leader of the inspirational, holy, righteous person, who was a great scholar, of course. But then there was the Abbeistin, the one who was more in the halachic area, who was responsible for creating, shall we say, the fence around the law and that kind of stuff. Because this is now more important than ever. And with that, we can then, the Rebbe explains, we have an understanding and appreciation of what Yossei ben Yoezer is saying over here. What is he saying? With that, from a historical context, what is his comment? Make sure you have the sages as part of your home in order to make sure that the fractured society will be less fractured, because you'll have sages in your home, right? In other words, whenever there'll be a difficulty in the fractured nature of Jewish observance, that was reflected in the fact that Jews were becoming Hellenists, right? That's only how it reflects it. We're now talking about in halachic rulings, even where there isn't one leader, there was only one sitter, so to speak, right? Because you didn't have things fractured. There was only one custom. But now, because of the nature of, how things were from the outside that were reflected also on the inside of the fractured nature, if you have sages who are in your home, and that whatever difficulty there will be in halachic and Jewish teachings, they will be resolved in the home, in the Jewish home. So that's sort of, as a historical context to his statement. Is that clear? Yeah.
Fracturing, Rabbi, did it start with the destruction of the temple?
I mean, this is during the Second Temple, so there was already the destruction of the First Temple, right? A few hundred years earlier, about 300 years earlier was the destruction of the First Temple. So now we're in the Second Temple times, about 150 years, or more like 200 years before the destruction of the Second Temple by the Romans, right? Now we're under the Greek dominance. From there, it switched over to the Roman dominance, right? So that's what it is historically. Is that clear?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay?
Rabbi Klein, can I
Yes,
ask a
Davida.
question?
Sorry?
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure, of course.
How does this relate where it's telling us to sit in the dust? Yet when Abraham met the messengers, the angels, he immediately went to wash their feet, the dust off their feet.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
excellent question. Yeah, excellent question. We will deal with that. Thank you for asking that. Okay, so that's the historical context. That is a historical understanding of his statement that Avot teaches us, right? Because of the challenges then. Let us go further and appreciate now. Actually, just to give you some more historical context to this, Yossei ben Yoezer had a nephew, Elkimas, who became a ruthless Hellenist. He facilitated the execution of many of the sages, including his own uncle. Whew. Now, that's on the negative side. Yossei ben Yoezer, the Mishneh tells us in Chagiga, he was a pious Cohen. He ruled leniently, and he was flawless in his knowledge. He donated all of his property to the Holy Temple, and that equaled 1 purse of gold. A purse of gold was all of his valuables, and that's what he donated to the Holy Temple. And he did that, aside from the mitzvah, of course, but he did it because he had a wayward son, and he wanted, in the merit of giving tzedakah, that his son would come back on the healthy path. Well, his son came back, and not only did he come back on the straight and narrow, but he himself also donated. He had he married the daughter of King Yanai's crown weaver. He, from a crown gem, he donated half of the needs for the Holy Temple, which was 6 times the amount of what his father gave. Not only came back on the straight and narrow, but he also became a great donator towards the Holy Temple's lishka, its needs. This is all in the Talmud. Okay, so now let's go into the teachings. So make your home a meeting place for the scholars, right? A meeting place for the scholars. Now, that's speaking to you and I. It's speaking to every single individual should make their home for the scholars. Why? So just for that statement alone, you should do it. In other words, the next statement is bask in the dirt of their feet, right? And bask in the dirt of their feet and drink their words thirstily, correct? But the first point is just to make your home a place where scholars come and hang out. Why? In other words, period. We don't have to continue the next statement. The next statement is just adding something on. There's a value in this statement alone. What's the value of this statement?
Just to get influenced
Just to get
by them
influence.
and to learn from them.
Well, that's the following.
And to learn.
No, that's the following statement, though. That's not what it says here. Take each statement for its own. Is that statement only that you should, learn from them? So then only make the second statement. Then you don't need to make the first statement and say, make your home a place of meeting. right? You don't need to make that statement. Again, let's look over here. Let your home be a meeting place for the wise. That's a statement for itself. Dust yourself in the soil of their feet, a statement for itself, and drink thirstily in their words. In other words, each one is not a means to the next point. It's a point for itself. It's a value in and of itself. What is the value of you making a meeting place for the wise? No.
Rabbi, associate with them?
Associate with them. Excellent. In other words, when you're going to have them in your home, that means you have an association with them.
Mission with them.
Period. Aside from learning from them, which is, again, the next point, right? There's just the fact that you associate with them. Period. So association is an interesting thing. What's association mean? There's two ways to learn. And the first part of the Mishneh is giving us the first part as opposed to the second part. The second part is, learning, take it in like a drink, which we'll get to. That's taking it inwardly, right? Like you take a drink, it becomes a part of you. We'll get into the details of that metaphor there in a moment. But before that, a home means an encompassing edifice, right? A home not only protects you, the house protects you from the outside elements. The home is a nurturing environment. What makes it a nurturing environment? Environment means something that encompasses you. As we learn, when God creates the world, he creates the world in his immanence and in his transcendence, right? There's two elements. The light of God that surrounds us, the light of God that imbues us. So likewise, we're here, this Mishneh is giving us those two elements. The first one is your home, the environment. The environment is not something in you, it's something around you. Make that with the wise, because in that you'll have an association, you'll create an environment of wisdom, period. Whether you learned from them, whether you didn't learn from them. In other words, there's something called a makif, an encompassing environment that it will rub off on you. As we say, in time it'll rub off. What does it mean rub off? Why it rubs off? Because it didn't rub in. If it rubs in, if you get it in your head and you feed it to your heart, you don't have to have it rub off. It's rubbed in. It's rubbed into you. It's a part of you. That's not what it means here, the first statement. The first statement means have these people around you because it creates an environment that some of it will rub off on you. That's called makif. And in a certain way, that is even greater than what will be rubbed in you. Because whatever you guys are going to rub in from these great people will be minimal compared to their transcendent greatness that rubs off. That is sort of creates an environment. And that environment isn't just when they're there. That environment will continue when even they're gone. That they're not in your home. And the Bartanura gives a beautiful metaphor of an aroma, beautiful fragrance, right? A beautiful fragrance creates an environment, right? That's what do you need that for? What's that? What does a fragrance do? Then, it creates a feeling, it creates an environment, right? And that fragrance, that aroma lingers on even once you've taken away the aroma. It's still there. Likewise, these wise people, the effect that they will have in this makif is so powerful that even when they leave, it will linger on. So, I just want to bring out the richness of this idea. It's a beautiful, rich idea. That's much greater than we understand. I'll tell you why you don't understand it. Because university is a place where you don't want the you know the environment. The environment university is godless, from the professors and from the students themselves on their free time, so to speak, right? It's godless environment. And that has probably more of a negative effect than the teachings themselves. But
I went to Turo. I had very good holy teachers and
Ah,
rabbis.
as opposed to a yeshiva, like Leah went to Turo, which is like a yeshiva. My kids, there were times that, when it came to learning, they weren't so engaged. It's interesting. They're older now, they're mature now, and now they're actually some of the very good teachers, like my son Label, as Saul will attest to. Wasn't always that he was so inspired by learning, and he absorbed the teachings. But you know what? We made sure he was in the environment, because the environment is a holy environment to yeshiva. The environment, because of the teachers are rabbis and special people, and just the environment itself is crucially valuable, and in a certain way more valuable than the actual teachings themselves, because sometimes it's the environment that keeps the person connected. They don't do well with the teachings, they don't whatever, but they're in the environment. And even some of my kids, what they weren't so eager to learn, but they were eager to do miftzayim, to do their Rebbe's campaigns, to go out, and so they took responsibility for when it came to the campaigns of Hanukkah, for example. We're talking Hanukkah, right? To make sure that there's places to go, and menorahs to be given out, and all the things that were involved, right? So they stayed in the environment, and because they stayed in the environment, that rubbed off on them the values, maybe not the individual teachings. Perhaps they did not have, so down pat, and so, learn it in that area. But, they got the values and they got the teachings through being absorbed by the makif, what we call it, the home that you create and the environment that you create, that is crucial. Yes, Saul.
No, I was just going to say it doesn't necessarily refer to, how shall I say that, to teachers or something. It can refer to the parent creating the home environment.
Yeah. But here we're talking about, here I'm giving the metaphor. Here we're talking about make your home a home for the scholars, right?
Right, yeah.
So I'm just comparing that to the idea of a yeshiva, as opposed to university, where the environment is a I would suggest extremely toxic, a toxic environment, because again, anything that's godless is toxic, even though it might be very PC and very, what's the word I'm looking for? Let live, but the values are ultimately toxic values for society. And so that's what I'm making reference to, the metaphor, to understand this idea that our home, we understand. And actually, thank you, Saul, for mentioning that, because let's bring it back now to the teachings over here. When we open up our home for those scholars, and here in Montreal, we have a big, huge problem, because can you imagine, in our home, aside from family, we haven't had a single person come to be at our Shabbos table or at anything inside the house. And last summer we had them in our backyard, but inside the house we haven't had that. and that's sorely missing thing. But again, getting back to the Mishneh over here, make your home environment is exactly like you say, like parents who need to be, these scholars, but it means to bring these kind of people into your home that your children will, to rub off on them. So, when Label was a young kid, he'll tell you, he'll tell you about the yeshiva students that were, 5 years old or 10 years older than him. If he was 12 years old, so a 17-year-old student, right? Or if he was 8 years old, it was an 18-year-old student, for example. So we would have them in our home Friday night, on Shabbos or Shabbos day, and we would bring, and the memories that they have from that, of the older students from then. I mean, now they have the memories, but the influence that had, it wasn't because they learned something and then they were able to regurgitate that teaching afterwards. No. That's a different point, which we're going to get to, right? It's about the environment that you're creating in your home. That is the contention over here, right? Of creating that. So that's the first point. Now, okay, now you got these great scholars in your home. You got these wonderful people. Again, they could be an 18-year-old yeshiva student, who's, dedicated to davening, with intent every day, and dedicated to, to learn and to engage a younger student, to inspire them. That's, for me, that's what it means, having them. So now what do we say? You should bask in the dirt of their feet, right? So interesting thought that the Rebbe says, why do you have to be in the dirt? Because you're hosting. So as a host, you're here. The one who's being hosted, as the fact that they're a recipient, right? They're a recipient. They're down here, right? Not in the sense of me giving, them receiving, right? The giver is on top of the receiver, right? In the sense that they're giving. So a person might feel full of themselves and not ready to receive because I'm in the mode of giving. As like a hostess or a host, they're serving the people around the table and they're giving. Usually, when you're in a mode of giving, you're not in a mode of receiving, right? Just the nature. It's hard to switch. It's hard to, and you're not both at the same time. Often, someone at my table, they want to clean off from the first course. Just sit, it's okay, don't worry. Just they want to give. So, you know what? Sit. Underlying what I'm really saying is, just receive now. You don't have to give. You wanting to give means you are not going to be able to be such a good receiver. Be ready to receive. So therefore, in order that we shouldn't have that sense of, right, bask in the dirt of their feet, right? That's the first idea. In other words, make yourself lower so you could receive from them. After all, they're the wise ones.
Why dirt?
Why dirt? Yes. Okay. Why dirt?
Where do we see dirt?
Well, there's two phrases over here. You,
Dust, right? Dust.
You is avak, which is dust. Them is afar, which is soil. So what's the difference? Dust has no value. Soil does. dust are just dust particles. They have no value. Nothing comes from it. They're separate. Each particle is separate. Soil, right, is on the other hand, it's soil. Soil comes together and things grow from it. So be such a recipient that you are dust. You're nothing. They are soil, because from them I can learn something and grow. That's the attitude I need to have. So the first point is just have them. It'll rub off. You're creating an environment. Now we're going a little deeper, a little more engaged. How am I going to receive now something from them? That it shouldn't just be, that I'm, just it's rubbing off the environment, but I'm actually going to receive something also inwardly. So since my nature might be as the host, I'm the giver, I got to switch around. I got to become the taker. I've got to be the recipient here from these people. So I need to be the dust. Don't look at myself. Oh, I've got lots of, it's like, the it's a pushka, a can, got a few coins, makes a lot of noise. Now makes no noise because all the coins fell out. Right? So if you got a few coins in you, got a few, some brains in you, so then you make a lot of noise. If you empty yourself out, right, now you can fill yourself up with a lot of soil that a lot of stuff can grow from these sages that you're learning from. Does that make sense? And so why are we using for sages dirt? Is because that's also a sign of humility, right? The greatness of the sages is that in their humility, something can grow, as in dirt. You can have vegetation that grows. As opposed to dust, there's nothing there.
We all start from Avot and go to Avot.
Right. Well, or for afar, to dirt, to the ground. Yes. And then finally, if that's the attitude we have, then we can drink. Then we can internalize it. Then we can take the teachings, and they will be, what will they be? Life-giving. Just as a drink, right, is life-giving. When what's interesting about the function of a drink, it helps to distribute the food's nutrients to every part of the body. So likewise over here, when you are now with that mode of being, you're able to take the teachings and to now distribute it throughout all of your being, intellectually, emotionally, in every aspect of your being. It can really
Internalize.
it, right, and permeate every part of your being. And of course, the fact that we're thirsty means that we're on empty. We want to be satiated with this quench, this thirst, this passion that we have, that we want to be able to take in the teachings from the great sage. And that is the right, the teachings over here. Yeah, again, I must tell you, I thank you, because in looking this over and preparing it, so it it's clear, it's good, but it's not nearly as clear as after I teach it to you. Like, I'm the recipient. I feel like I'm the recipient over here, because I didn't have the clarity of the process over here until actually starting to verbalize it. So it's pretty powerful. So again, let's just quickly, the first thing is that we're making our home, which means an environment, which means a makif, not about what we're absorbing, in a inward manner as food or drink, right? But what we are relating to the sages in this manner of that, the fact that we just rub shoulders in association that creates an environment, and we all want to have a wholesome, holy environment. So just having them in your home creates that, even when they're not there, right? As the aroma lingers on. Now it lingers on not forever, so you got to have them over again, right? And then from there, to prepare how we engage them in a manner that will be able to take it to the next level. We are the avak, which is the dust. They are the afar that we sit in, their afar, their dirt, dirt meaning humility, dirt meaning ground, right? That something can grow. As when I understand that they have in their holiness, with their humility in them, through them, we can have growth by making me that I am empty. I'll be able to gain from them. And then ultimately, I'll be able to absorb it. I'll be able to absorb it, and it'll be able to bring life to every aspect of my life, because as water or any liquid drink, I don't know, any liquid drink, but I imagine just the fact that of the liquid part of it brings the nutrients to every part of the person, every limb of the body. So likewise, the teachings now is going to be affecting inwardly every aspect of my being.
Can I ask you which rabbi was the Nasi and which rabbi was the Avot Din? There were two of them, right?
Yeah. So the first one is the Nasi, and the second one is the Avot Din. Very good. And yeah, that's the format. Any other questions? Any comments? Any thoughts?
Is the dust trying to emulate by walking in their footsteps, by emulating them, walking in their footsteps?
Yeah. In other words, when we understand relative to them, we're dust, right? Then we'll be able to have soil to make something grow, right? That they have soil to make something grow. Dust comes in separate particles, right? Dust can come together, but it's not, dust doesn't have to come together. Maybe clods of dust do come together, right? But basically, each particle is a separate entity. Holiness is about coming together. Soil, right? Even though there's different particles of dirt, but they come together. They have the power, Mother Nature, of making something grow, right? So first it's soil, which represents the ground, which is low, meaning humility. that humility is able to bring things together in the soil, right, as it comes together to make something grow. And not only make something grow, but in a sense, something out of nothing. Because what do? You put a seed in there, and the seed, as we learn in Chassidus, Alter Rebbe teaches us in Tanya, the seed is not what grows. The seed arouses Mother Nature's power in the earth. It's the nutrients in the earth. It's the power of growth that's in the earth that is aroused through the seed to now make something grow. So again, showing the humility, right? Because first of all, the seed disintegrates, and in its being disintegrated, it now can sprout into something tremendously greater than what it started and becomes a fruit-bearing tree. That's the sages, the power that they have. And that's how we look at them, as we see ourselves as just the dust. And the dust here doesn't mean you're worthless, you're nothing, but relative when you're in their vicinity, in their company, in order to get from them, that's how you have to look at yourself, not like you're worthless and, what value do you have? And you're just, a piece of dust. No, for sure not. That's not the point over here. The point is in my association, my relationship to the great sage. A great sage we're talking about like the Rebbe, not me. Not talking about me over here, by the way, at all. Talking about the Rebbe. Now, the truth is, I don't know what that means over here, and in the literal sense, you're going to have them in your home. The Rebbe didn't come to your home. So for me, I take it the yeshiva students, of having them in your home, and that kind of thing, and that's how I view it in that manner. So
Rabbi Fine, can I
Yeah,
ask another question?
absolutely. Go ahead, Davida.
Why does it say at the end of the Amida, it says, let my soul be dust to all? Is that in relation to what we just talked about?
I get that's before Hashem, you're davening and yeah, that's also, the humility that we are expressing at that moment as we stand before Hashem. Yes. Yeah. Good point. Good point. Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Shaul. Go ahead, Saul. Unmute yourself.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Okay. Can you just review what you the last few lines you said about the thirst after we drink it, like the result?
So your thirst means you're drinking something. Drinking means that the fluid, then when it goes into our system, it's taking the nutrients of food, right? Because let's say water, water doesn't really have nutrients. So what's the value of the water? It's taking the nutrients of the food and it's distributing it to the various limbs of the body.
Okay.
Right? Meaning the wisdom that you're partaking or taking in from the teachings of the sages is now life-giving because it's giving you nutrients and it's giving you vitality.
Oh, okay.
It's giving you vitality. And of course, that's the two parts. There's the creating the environment, and then there is in that environment now absorbing, from the teachings. In the end, we want both elements. We need both elements. In the beginning, I was only bringing out the richness of just creating the environment, we don't realize how crucial that is. And it's not, just about, I mean, we do, any mother, raising her kids knows that, creating an environment that is wholesome, that is, loving and so on. Those are all, what's the word? Those are things that are not being internalized. They're rubbing off, and they're, they do become, because they rub off, that they, become internalized in some way. But the way that they're experienced is not in their mind and into their mind, getting something and then absorbing it into their heart, right? That's what a teaching will do. That's what a teaching will do. But creating an environment is a different kind of idea. And as I mentioned, a healthy environment like a yeshiva is crucial. Right. That's it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tim has a question. Tim has a question. Tim.
Tim. Oh, go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. When in Rabbi Mendy's portion, we had we were all just kind of sharing, our locales or where we live and a little bit about ourselves. And that was kind of an interesting makif, relating it to our lesson here. And it was a good feeling, and I think everybody liked that. And he mentioned maybe we should do that sometime, and I'm just, again, sharing that with you.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I brought that up to him yesterday.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. I'm glad he did that. That's actually an important thing, to share, because again, the two things in creation, the two basic things in creation, right, is makif, soivev as it's called, and memale, as God, as he creates the world. Soivev means sivuv, which means encompassing, the encompassing light of God, the atmosphere, right, as we're relating it over here, the home, atmosphere. And then there is memale, how it fills, how God fills each and every creation uniquely and differently. Appreciating the distinction of this creation, that creation, and so on, in a way that it permeates from within in our minds, understanding, and so on. So likewise, you're right. In a connection with every person, you have both those things to relate to them. So most of what we're doing over here is, in fact, the pnimius, the learning, because we're taking Torah teachings and imbuing it in and into our minds, trying to integrate and internalize it, and hopefully that it brings to our heart some feeling, at least of the greatness of Hashem's Torah and how awesome it is, and then from there, hopefully that it affects our behavior, right? But like you said, there's also a great value, which that's a great thing. Maybe. So yeah, how much time did you spend on that? And everybody went through and
A few minutes.
Just a few minutes.
Few minutes.
So I would like to do that likewise. I don't know if now's the time.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe
Echo.
tomorrow if we can spend a little time on that. That would be great. I thank you for bringing that up, because that's an important thing, and creates also concept of community. And what's community? Not individual. Individual is about me and what I absorbed, right? But then community is something that's greater than me. That's the transcendence. Okay, everybody game for that? We're good for that.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Rabbi.
Totally on board.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank
Right.
you, Tim, for bringing that up. Okay, so tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, we'll spend some time.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
folks,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you, Rabbi.
everybody. Thank you. Sei gesund. You will.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks.
You will.